Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, Chapter 1, Text 16. Vasudeva Kata Prashna. Purusham Strin Punatihi. Bhaktaram Prachakam Shrotrims. Sapada Salilam Yata. Vasudeva Kata Prashna. Purusham Strin Punatihi. Bhaktaram Prachakam Shrotrims. Sapada Salilam Yata. Vasudeva Kata Prashna. Purusham Strin Punatihi. Bhaktaram Prachakam Shrotrims. Sapada Salilam Yata. Vaishnavis. Vasudeva Kata Prashna. Questions about the pastimes and characteristics of Vasudeva Krishna. Purushan, persons. Trin, 3. Punati, purify. He, indeed. Bhaktaram, the speaker, such as Shukadeva Goswami. Prachakam, and an inquisitive hearer like Maharaja Parikshit. Srotrin, and between them, the listeners hearing about the topics. tatpada salilam yata. Exactly as the entire world is purified by the Ganges water emanating from the toe of Lord Vishnu. Translation: the Ganges emanating from the toe of Lord Vishnu purifies the three worlds, the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. Similarly, when one asks questions about the pastimes and characteristics of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, three varieties of men are purified: the speaker or preacher, he who inquires, and the people in general who listen. Purport: it is said, Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. Those interested in understanding transcendental subject matters as the goal of life must approach the bona fide spiritual master. Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta. One must surrender to such a guru who can give right information about Krishna. Herein, Maharaja Parikshit has surrendered to the right personality, Shukadeva Goswami, for enlightenment in Vasudeva Katha. Vasudeva is the original personality of Godhead, who has unlimited spiritual activities. Srimad Bhagavatam is a record of such activities, and Bhagavad Gita is the record of Vasudeva speaking personally. Therefore, since the Krishna consciousness movement is full of Vasudeva Katha, anyone who hears, anyone who joins the movement, and anyone who preaches will be purified. Om Agana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We'll do the translation one more time. The Ganges emanating from the toe of Lord Vishnu purifies the three worlds, the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. Similarly, when one asks questions about the pastimes and characteristics of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, three varieties of men are purified: the speaker or preacher, he who inquires, and the people in general who listen. So first, some matters of cosmic location. This verse is, besides making its main point about the effect of Krishna Katha, is giving you some cosmological information, which should help you to understand what kind of neighborhood you're living in. Any practical person is aware of their surroundings, the real estate value of the houses in the neighborhood, the potential for crime, potential for property values to go up, down. When you're living in a particular environment, neighborhood, atmosphere, you're supposed to be in touch with the realities of that place, the pragmatic realities of your living surroundings. So we hear that there is the upper, middle, and lower planetary system. That's not just some cosmological trivia. It's helping you to understand what to expect based on where you're situated. We're in the middle planetary system. That's not just an item, as I said, of passing interest. It's very important to understand where we're at so we can understand what our prospects are. Just like if you're going to invest, you want to understand what's the current market realities, what are the probabilities of the market in the future, what's it done in the past. You want to position yourself appropriately. So in the middle planetary system, you understand, or you should understand, there's going to be mixed material happiness and distress. So once you get your bearings, you got your GPS system properly adjusted by hearing from Bhagavatam, then you can have appropriate expectations in the material atmosphere of the middle planetary system, which is material. You should expect there'll be material happiness, there'll be material distress. It's built into the situation. So hearing this, we're not going to be so dreamy. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, dukkhalayam ashashvatam. The whole material manifestation is temporary and miserable. So then you might say, well, how can the middle planetary system be especially miserable when the whole cosmic manifestation is described by Krishna as miserable? Abrahma bhuvana loka puna arvatina Arjuna. Krishna says, from the highest planet, even Brahmalok, down to the lowest, all are places of suffering. So you say, wait a minute, it's not all suffering in my life, at least not yet. I've had some magic moments. We've discussed this. I've had some good times, some fulfilling moments, but that's it. In a nutshell, you have just stated the problem. I've had my good times. I've had some magic moments. From Krishna's point of view, this is worthless. If something is temporary, you'll never be satisfied. You'll be left disappointed. It's not substantial enough. Just like a shadow, as Lord Brahma says, Chaiva yasa bhuvanani bhavati durga. This material world is the shadow potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if you grab hold of a shadow thinking you're in contact with something substantial, you're in deep illusion. But the shadow has some existence, but it's not what you should be interacting with. It's like I can look on the floor here. In front of Madhava is his shadow because the light's coming from the back. So if I think that's the real Madhava, that shadow on the floor, let me interact with that. Everyone will think I'm crazy. Yet we spend lifetime after lifetime trying to interact with the shadow world and be fulfilled, be successful. So from Krishna's point of view, the whole material manifestation is miserable, even on the planet of Lord Brahma, who lives for 311 trillion years. You can't conceive of that. What to speak of 24 hours of Brahma's lifetime, 8,640,000,000 years. You can't even conceive of that, his 24 hours. Yet Krishna says, miserable. Even if you go to the heavenly planets, to the upper planetary system, you'll be kicked out. You say, well, so what that I'm kicked out? I'll have some great moments, much longer than the moments in the middle planetary system. So Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam are altering our conceptions of what is possible and what is not possible. You're getting the overview that is so desperately missing in our life. What are the circumstances that I'm operating in? What's the overall package that I'm contained within? Unless you know that, you're going to be bewildered. You're going to be flying blindly, as they say. So just the first part of this verse is giving us crucial information about where you're at. Where you're at doesn't simply mean your hopes and dreams. It means your external situation, your surroundings. Where are you at? Knowing that, you can adjust your expectations accordingly. Just like if you're looking to buy a house somewhere, you want to know what's the neighborhood like? What's the future probability of housing prices increasing, values going up, values going down? It's like I was having a discussion with some devotees about Shannon, the tiny town where our new Kalinagram is located at the edge. So one devotee was saying, "Oh, it's a rough town. There's hulks of abandoned cars everywhere on the streets. Oh no, I would never live there. I would live half hour away in Levin, which is better." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. I've driven through that little town, Shannon. I didn't. Krishna Prasad has taken me through there. I didn't see any burnt out cars lining the streets and houses collapsing and guys hanging out on the street corner plotting crimes." And then I talked to some other devotees and said, "Yeah, it's not like that. It's a nice place. There, every city, town in New Zealand has its rough streets, but as a whole, yeah, if it wasn't for looking for a school for our children, we would have moved there to be right next to New Kalinagram." So just see how you're trying to position yourself appropriately. What are the surroundings like? What are your surroundings in the middle planetary system like? You're going to see happiness and distress mixed all the time. So Krishna says, Dukkhalayam Shashvatam. This material world is temporary and miserable, and we want to make it Sukhalayam, the place of happiness. So we have these dreams dancing in our head. But once you understand where you're at, you can temper those dreams. You can adjust them. In the conditioned soul, there'll always be the tendency to dream because the whole material existence is a dream. You're dreaming that you're separate from Krishna. So once you understand where you're at, you can start to proceed in an intelligent way. So many times there have been these dreams that suddenly the earth is going to become, by material methods, a paradise. Remember, those old enough to remember back in the 60s and early 70s, there was the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Anyone remember that? Harmony and understanding were supposed to automatically appear. No one remembers that. That was before your time, Tirtharaj? Yeah. Yeah. So the counterculturals were all waiting for the automatic dawning of the age of Aquarius, harmony and understanding, free love, free drugs. What happened? Didn't happen. And then in the 90s, when the new age was all the rage, how many of you remember the harmonic convergence? Anyone remember that? No? Dharmaseta, do you remember? Around the year, 2000. Because of some convergence of planets or something like that, or I forget what it was, but it was called the harmonic convergence. All the astrological or whatever psychic symptoms were combining to automatically bring about a whole new age. Didn't happen. So what are we to do? Become pessimists? I'm in the middle planetary system. All my efforts are doomed. Could be a lot worse. You could be in the lower planetary system. Upper planetary system means generally material happiness. Middle planetary system means mixed happiness and distress. Lower planetary system means generally all material unhappiness. So we don't feel so bad. We've got the mixture, right? We've got the sweet rice mixed with sand. As long as the sweet rice is there, never mind the sand. We'll triumph anyway, right? Our hopes, our dreams will become fulfilled. So how to become purified of these delusions? First of all, we have the delusion thinking we are this body and mind. And because of that concoction, which is produced by the junction of the false ego and the material mind, we have this false identification, which is a mental concoction, as Krishna says in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So because you have this false idea in your mind, even when you act with your senses, your working senses, your knowledge acquiring senses, Gyanendriyas, Karmendriyas, you're still on the mental platform because your mind has infused your senses with a particular vision. And so you're seeing in your mind's eye, yes, I see Sukhalayam, a place of happiness. I see, if not for others, at least for me, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Yes, I can see it now. It's all coming to me. That's a mental concoction. And so when you use your arms, your legs, your eyes, your ears, other parts of your body, that's also described in the Shastra as being mental because your sensory activities infuse with your mental concoction. It doesn't end there, though. Not only are your senses infused with mental concoction, but the sense objects are also infused with mind concoction. So you're not just looking at something for the eyes, feeling something with a sense of touch, hearing sounds with your ears. Your mind is dominating the situation. Scientists can show you that the brain is not simply acting alone in receiving sensory information. The brain is also filling in the blanks, so to speak. We know that the mind is doing that. The mind is utilizing the brain. This is how powerful mental concoction is. It infuses our senses. It infuses the sense objects. And so basically, you can truthfully say the whole material project is a mental concoction. So how is it going to be purified? This is what Sri Shukadev Goswami is. This is the problem he's tackling. Why is he called Shukadev or Sri Shuka? Because his voice is so melodious. And why is his voice melodious? Is it because he took music lessons? Is it because he has musical talent? No, his voice is melodious, the acharyas say, because it's saturated with Krishna Prem. The Krishna Prem is making his voice come out melodious. Small point, you might say, but very important. So that's why he has the name Sri Shuka. So now he's talking about the value of Vasudeva Katha, Krishna Katha. When one asks questions about the pastimes and characteristics of Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, 3 varieties of men and women are purified. And you know, Prabhupada is saying men in the generic sense, including ladies too. But these days there could be a protest about that. 3 varieties of men are purified: the speaker or preacher, he who inquires, and the people in general who listen. Everyone benefits. You might think it's just the speaker, or you might think it's just the listeners, but it's also those in the audience who ask questions, the speaker who answers questions, actually a technical point the acharyas point out. Of the three, the speaker benefits the most. Number two is the one who inquires. And number three is the audience in general who's witnessing the whole affair. But you can just understand that all three benefit. You don't have to get into the fine print. So in the purport we hear, Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. Those interested in understanding transcendental subject matters as the goal of life must approach the bona fide spiritual master. Interested in understanding transcendental subject matters, it doesn't stop there. Interested in understanding such subject matters as the goal of life, they should approach a guru. So, what is the prime qualification of the guru? One must surrender to such a guru who can give right information about Krishna. You might say, well, what's the big deal about right information about Krishna? Anyone can do that. If you're always going to say what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you'll find some challenging statements. Yet, the genuine spiritual master always says what Krishna says. Krishna says, Dukkhalayam asastratam. Well, I don't know about that. Let's have some positive thinking here. We try to understand what Krishna says and why Krishna said it. So that is right information about Krishna. Right information about Krishna includes what will accelerate our devotional service to Krishna and what will impede our devotional service to Krishna. So therefore, sometimes we talk about the obstacles, as Tirtharaj Prabhu was doing. Sometimes we talk about what will accelerate bhakti. Sometimes we talk about the life of a bhakta in society in general, because we're living in a society which actually is a hostile environment. This is why so many of our devotees from a non-Bharat background, non-Indian background, if they falter in their bhakti, they have no culture whatsoever to fall back into that would be supportive while they try to get themselves together again. Sometimes it can seem for our devotees from non-Indian backgrounds, it's like bhakti or bust. Either you make it all the way back to Godhead, or else you fall by the wayside into the society in general, which is totally inhospitable. You've got no smatterings like those from Indian backgrounds. You have no smatterings of Vedic culture, no remnants to cling to. You're just out. So this is why Prabhupada appreciated so much the sacrifice of his so-called Western disciples, because they just basically, they walked the plank, so to speak, in the movies about pirates. They would, someone they wanted to get rid of on the ship, they tie you up and make you walk the plank and jump into the ocean. So it can seem like that for some of our devotees. It's like flying in an airplane and business as usual is going on the airplane. Society is going on in its way. You're a part of it. And then suddenly, mid-flight, you open up the door to the airplane and jump out. So Srila Prabhupada appreciated that these, as he would say, these boys and girls have just given up everything to assist me. So this is the reality. Most of our devotees here are coming from a non-traditional background, a background that is unfamiliar with anything of real civilization. So then you take up your chanting, you take up the four regular principles, and the fear is there. If I stumble, There's no safety net in between to catch me. Like if you're from Bharat, all right, you can stop chanting your rounds, but still show up on Janmashtami and everyone thinks you're still all right. You keep your social prestige, you know. You go through all the externals. You keep up with a few of the rituals. But if you're from a non-Bharat audience, if you falter, if you fall off the path, what are you caught? What are you back into? You're back into the mess. So sometimes we talk about society because, yes, materialistic society is hostile for spiritual life. Everything you saw the initiates yesterday, they promised not to do. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication. Society says these are the greatest things. In fact, how can you live without these things? These are the prime necessities. All right, there's some support for your being a vegetarian. All right. Yeah, it's better for the environment. Okay. Still, most people think it's best to be a flexitarian. Sometimes vegetarian, sometimes eating meat. You're open, you're flexible. So therefore they're called flexitarians. No gambling. Well, yeah, that could be all right. Gambling can be addictive. No intoxication, not even coffee. What to speak of the other recreational drugs? The softer drugs. I would never touch the hard drugs. And then the last one. Ooh. You guys, how can you do this? There must be something better available in order to stay free from those 4 pillars of sinful activity. So initiation means I'm enrolled in what is better. Otherwise, I don't stand a chance against what is the worst. So we talk about society, which is rapidly deteriorating in terms of the social fabric, in terms of mental stability. And this deadly atmosphere is starting to affect the behavior of our devotees from Bharat, especially their children are growing up in such a scene. When I'm speaking in Australia to an audience mainly from Bharat, I say, don't think the worst thing that's going to happen to your children is that during a cricket match between Australia and India, they start cheering for Australia. That's not the worst it's going to get. So we talk about society because it's a reality, not the ultimate reality, but it's affecting our candidates for spiritual life. So here Shukadeva Goswami is saying, hearing about Krishna, questions about Krishna, purify the atmosphere. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, therefore, since the Krishna conscious movement is full of Vasudeva Katha, anyone who hears, anyone who joins the movement, and anyone who preaches will be purified. So this is the conviction of the acharyas. They have no doubts. Even someone who just hears about Krishna once and goes away, they're marked. They have heard. Of course, how deeply do you hear? Elsewhere in Bhagavatam, there's a verse that anyone who actually hears about Krishna can never go back to material life. Well, wait a minute. We know, unfortunately, a few persons who they've heard about Krishna and They've had some major problems. They've even disappeared from the society of devotees. Do we actually hear? That is the question we should always be thinking. How rapt is my attention? How focused is my attention? Well, all right. I don't know if I should say it, but I will. Sometimes, although I stay out of it, devotees with relationship problems, they start talking about it in front of me. And often it's he or she is not really hearing me. Are you listening? They say to the other person. Do you actually hear what I say? Similarly, when it comes to bhakti, because bhakti is a personal relationship, are we actually hearing closely what Krishna says? Then you can understand why Shukadeva Goswami would state anyone who actually hears about Krishna can never go back to material life. So we've been talking about Krishna's childhood pastimes and how Krishna doesn't simply want to display inconceivable activities. He wants to stir the relationship, the flow of rasa between the devotee and him. So that's what he's doing to Mother Yashoda. You've heard about his mischief, he and Balaram, what they were doing as they first began to walk. And you've heard about Krishna's dealing with the Trinarvarta demon. But Krishna wants to show something more. He wants to show inconceivable sweetness because as a child, little infant, when he's killing the demons, that there's a mixture of Aishvarya, opulence, which denotes awe and reverence mixed in. But I want to give the pure childhood sweetness. Because you say the absolute truth is that from which everything emanates, everything even means baby sweetness and baby mischief and baby naughtiness. It's all going on there in Krishna. So he's thinking, all my childhood naughtiness did not produce the desired effect, the ultimate effect I want, which is I want my mother to chastise me in pure Vatsalya prem, pure parental love. She hasn't done that yet. Every time the elder gopis in Braj would go and lodge so-called complaints with her, you know what your Krishna is doing? He's pinching our babies. He's making them cry. He's passing stool and urine in the clean places in our home because he doesn't find any milk to steal. Of course, we already discussed how actually the acharyas point out Krishna has no urine or stool, but he produces an illusory effect that is the case. So they're all going to Mother Yashoda complaining, and they're expecting Mother Yashoda to chastise Krishna just a little bit. But everyone then, hearing what Krishna has done, they look at him and they become mesmerized by his sweet, innocent baby face. So Krishna never gets chastised, and he wants to do something to provoke that reaction from Mother Yashoda. Because she can go between being very affectionate in the obvious way of always kissing her little child like mothers do, or she can sometimes chastise him. So Krishna wants to experience the nectar of mother's chastisement. That's part of relationships. I remember once I got severely chastised by my mother. No comparison, of course, to Braj Leela. I was in my 4th year at school, and I didn't do my homework one day. So the teacher wrote out a note. He did not do his homework today and said, take it to your parents and have it signed. Does that still happen in public schools these days? No. Dharma Sage Prabhu says no. This is the top track. And for the top, the school was, each school year was divided into tracks, like 4-1, 4-2, 4-3, based on your academic potential. So I was in 4-1. So the teacher was very strict. All right, take this note to your parents, have them sign it. So I had a brilliant idea. My name was the same as my father's name and my grandfather's name. I was the third. So I said, well, since my father's name is the same as my name, I'll sign the note. It was a great idea. So the next morning I gave the note to the teacher. She just took one look at it, saw that it was a childish signature. Did you sign this note? I said, yes. Then she wrote on top of the note, your son has forged your signature. And I'm supposed to show this note to my father, who was an administrator in the New York City Police Department. Your son has forged a signature, like I was a big criminal. So I knew what was going to happen when I got home. My father looked at the note, said to my mother, you take care of this. So she warmed my bottom a bit. And I remember while she's warming my bottom, the neighbor next door happened to come in, and while she's warming my bottom, he says, he said, you'll never do this again, huh? So I never want to experience that again. But Krishna wants to experience it. Why doesn't my mother chastise me? I've done so much mischief. But she just gets pacified by my smiling face. Remember, she tells the older gopis, why don't you just give him the butter? He won't steal it then. And they say, well, we try to give it to him, but he won't take it. He likes to steal it. Unless it's stolen butter, he won't eat it. Well, why don't you keep some milk products aside for him? Well, as we said, he only takes it if it's stolen. And secondly, what he steals is the best milk products that we reserve for our husbands. He takes that. So they had a whole list of what Krishna and his little friends are doing. But Mother Yasoda won't chastise him. Krishna just stands there as they're complaining about him and smiling, because they're talking Krishna Katha. Krishna did this. Your Krishna did that. Are you aware of what Krishna has done? They thought that they were helping Mother Yashoda by presenting these complaints. Like, you don't see what he's doing on the other side of the village. You're missing out on all the nectar. So they present the reports in the form of complaints, but actually they're thinking, we're helping Mother Yashoda because she can now hear what she's not seeing, what Krishna is doing on the other side of the village. We're helping her. So she's getting all this information, but she still doesn't chastise Krishna. So Krishna is determined. I'm going to do something that shows my mother my real powers, just briefly, in a way that doesn't disturb her pure Vatsalya Prem, her pure parental love. Won't disturb what I show, won't disturb her sweetness of the relationship. And in this way, I'll also get some chastisement. I want to taste the nectar of chastisement. My mother criticizing me, punish me. I want to taste that. So what does he do? It's a controversy. his playmates accuse him in front of Mother Yashoda that little Krishna has eaten dirt. Now, this controversy is interesting because the issue is really not did he actually eat dirt or not. Sometimes the acharyas say he took some soft earth in a solitary place, but the other cowherd boys saw him because the other cowherd boys were instructed by Mother Yashoda, you protect Krishna, make sure he doesn't do anything strange. So they took Mother Yashoda's order very seriously. So Krishna, it is said, in a relatively solitary place, took some soft earth and ate it. Sanatana Goswami, however, says it could be that Krishna just faked eating the dirt. So who's lying? When the cowherd boys report to Mother Yashoda, because they didn't want Krishna eating dirt. And they knew Mother Yashoda didn't want him eating dirt. So they reported to her, Krishna's eating dirt. So therefore, Krishna came up with a strategy. First of all, he said, why are you presenting the reports of my cowherd boyfriends? They're lying. They're just angry because I won't play with them anymore. And Mother Yashoda replied, it's not just the cowherd boys in general that are presenting this accusation. Your brother Balaram is also saying the same thing. And so Jiva Goswami says that Krishna then said a very interesting thing. Balaram, how can he talk? 2 weeks ago, he ate some dirt. And now he's afraid I'll tell on him. So to cover himself, he's accusing me of eating dirt. So this is the way little children operate. It gives their mother lots of anxiety. And Mother Yashoda was always in anxiety. She was in the distress of material anxiety. But it's not material. We explained that the other day. Her anxiety is 100% Krishna prema. And everything Krishna does with her is to increase her Krishna prema. So Krishna says, Balaram is in on the conspiracy. This is the original conspiracy theory. Balaram ate dirt himself a couple of weeks ago. Now he's trying to put it on me. So who's lying here? Krishna is saying, all my friends are all lying. And Mother Yashoda is saying, how can your friends be lying, especially Balaram? So it's time for empirical research of Krishna's mouth, a scientific investigation of what's in Krishna's mouth. Krishna is confident that whether he ate dirt or not is not the real issue. Krishna is saying, there won't be, whether I did or I didn't, when I open my mouth upon the order of Mother Yashoda, all the remnants of the dirt will be gone. Therefore, I can freely open my mouth. So he did that. But he said, I'm going to open my mouth. And in other words, just in case there's a little bit of dirt left, I'm going to show her something she'll never forget. And that'll distract her, and then I won't get punished. So he say, well, make up your mind, Krishna. Do you want your mother to chastise you, or do you not? But Krishna is enjoying all these different angles. This is spiritual life. Infinite variety. If she chastises me, finally, I'll enjoy that. If she doesn't chastise me, and if I act in such a way to stop her from chastising me, I'll enjoy that too. So whatever option happens, I'll relish it, and I'll make sure she relishes it. I'll make sure her Krishna prema, her love simply increases no matter what happens. So I'm going to open my mouth, and I'm going to show her something. So she may get some understanding of what kind of child she has. So you know what happened when she had Krishna open his mouth. She saw the whole cosmic manifestation. She even saw Vrindavan and herself and Krishna. So Krishna is the foundation of the whole material existence. Yet in his mouth, Mother Yashoda sees such a sight. My point is, why doesn't every time she feeds Krishna, why doesn't she see such a sight? But Krishna knows how to manage the situation for maximum love. Otherwise, every time she went to feed Krishna or looked in his mouth, she'd see the whole cosmic manifestation. But Krishna doesn't want that all the time, even though he contains everything. For the sake of love, he limits himself, even though he's the unlimited. He limits himself while still being the unlimited. That shows truly how Krishna is unlimited. The unlimited can limit himself while still being the unlimited. So she sees the cosmic manifestation, and then she starts going down a checklist. Check number 1. Am I dreaming? No, I'm wide awake. My eyes are free from any contaminants of sleep. In other words, I can sort of pinch myself and see I'm wide awake. Okay, that check number 1. Check number 2. Am I in some kind of illusion? Some kind of Deva Maya? Have the demigods produced this illusion? No, I'm just an insignificant woman. Why would the demigods want to play with my mind and produce such illusions? No, that can't be. All right, check number 3. Am I mentally deranged? No, I've been all right as far as I can see. All my mental faculties are functioning properly. Check number 4. This must be the mystic power of my child. My child must have some inconceivable abilities. Maybe my child is even Narayan, or maybe my child's empowered by a Narayan. At that point, Krishna says to himself, enough. And she can't go further than check number 4. Maybe this is all produced by my son's mystic powers. Maybe he's even Narayan. Oh, she can't go any further. Why? Because she starts thinking, wait a minute, that can't be true. Number 4 can't be true. I know my little child, sweet and innocent, mischievous, hungry, thirsty. Nah. Can't be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she's exhausted herself with her metaphysical speculation. Krishna's enjoying this. But then he says to himself, enough is enough. He intensifies the curtain of Yoga Maya. Because Krishna's thinking, if my mother is going to metaphysically speculate like this, who's going to feed me? Who's going to care for me? Who's going to nourish me? This is the nature of Vatsalya Prem, that the devotee thinks Krishna is dependent on me for maintenance and nourishment. And so the devotee in Vatsalya Prem is showing mercy and compassion in terms of caring for Krishna, who is dependent. So Krishna is thinking, she's metaphysically speculating like this. But enough is enough. I want to be cuddled. So Krishna intensifies the curtain of Yoga Maya. And Mother Yashoda said, let me forget this, what I've seen. It doesn't make any sense, and I don't want to think about it. Let me just hold Krishna and feed him. So this is how Krishna is perfect and complete. Everything is there in him. But without knowledge, you'll think Krishna is an ordinary child. You'll think these are mythological stories, when actually you're hearing about the unlimited perfection of the complete whole. Krishna contains everything. There are devotees who want to love him in Vatsalya relationship, parental relationship. All right, here's your chance. There are devotees who want to be Krishna's friends and accuse him. You've eaten dirt. We're going to tell Mother Yashoda, we're telling your mother on you. Did you used to do this mantra when you were a little kid? I'm telling your mother on you. Huh? Maybe once or twice. All that's within Krishna. So this is the purpose of Krishna consciousness, to understand Krishna in truth. And to do that, we have the bhakti process. And we should be aware of what are the impediments to bhakti, what are the accelerators of bhakti, what's the nature of the illusory society we dwell in, how to interact with that society. So many of you are working, so many of you have families. To some extent, you're within society. How do you deal with that without becoming contaminated? It's also, hearing that is also about talking of Krishna. But the name, form, qualities, and pastimes that's our engine house. That's our central, that's the center of our life. All right, any questions? Yes. Where do we get our taste for service from if we don't have a taste for hearing and chanting? We need impetus. We can't just sit around and say, oh, I have no taste. I have no taste for service. I have no taste for hearing and chanting. What am I going to do? I often ask this question. Have you ever tried for something vigorously in material life? Sometimes persons say no. But generally, everyone has tried to do something, tried to attain something, no matter how small. So why can't you make an effort for Krishna? Build your spiritual muscles in that way. Step by step, gradually build up your spiritual muscles. If you let your chanting fall aside, gradually build it up. If you're not motivated enough to completely make the jump from nothing to minimum 16 rounds overnight, gradually build up. So it's amazing when we look at our life, we'll see there were times when we really tried for something. We went all out. We were greedy for something. We wanted something. You don't have to say what it is. But there was maybe it was just to get a certain toy as a little kid. I remember as I was 14 years old and I was having too easy of a time in public schools. So my mother said, okay, you're off to boarding school. I had a scholarship to boarding school with the richest kids in North America. And so I was under such emotional pressure, far from home, in school of 175 boys, no girls, maximum class size 10, classes 6 days a week. The whole purpose of the school was how many students are we sending to the Ivy League? It's not how many are going to university. Everyone's going to university, but we're aiming for the top. So I was under such emotional pressure. It's my 10th year. And so my grades were affected. And so the headmaster, the chief, is that what you call them here? Headmaster? What do you call them? Principal called me in and said, we think that since you're coming from a city school, you're going to have to repeat a year. Repeat the year that you just did in the city school. You're going to have to repeat it in our school. I couldn't believe I heard such a thing. Me repeat a year? Yeah. So I remember I went all out for 3 months. I was studying till midnight every night. I just mobilized completely, even though I was just by that time 15 years old. Mobilized completely. Got to do something about the situation. It's an emergency. After 3 months, I was at the top of the class. The students and teachers were like, what's going on here? We thought you were just one of those city minority cases that we had to take in our school in order to create diversity. So I always remember that. Why? If I did that much for material goals, why can't I do that for Krishna? So generally, almost everyone has something they really strive for. When you just made a maximum effort, whether you felt like it or not, you went for it. So why can't you do that for Krishna? Rather than just wallow in self-pity. I just have no taste. No inclination to do service. I'm the most fallen, so I might as well remain fallen. If you want to be motivated, you associate with those who have spiritual motivation. Often, I'm sorry to say, it can happen that when you're in a down spell, you don't want to associate with those who are on the upswing because you'll feel something's wrong with you. So you look for others who are down also to associate with. Yeah, no one can really chant Hare Krishna. What's the point in trying? Yeah, we had our bhakti honeymoon and now it's a divorce. Unfortunately, it can happen that when you're down, you look for the association of those who are down and commiserate. When actually, when you're feeling down, you should look for those who are on the up. That's the smart thing to do. Anything else? Yes. Have that desire. The technique begins with the desire. I want to hear my chanting, my reading. I want to hear it all with rapt attention. And Krishna in your heart will help you achieve that desire because it's what Krishna wants. You have to push a bit because don't think that the illusory energy is just going to stand by and allow you to push ahead like that. The purpose of the illusory energy is service to Krishna by training those who are aspiring for Krishna to make sure that you're sincere, that you're really wanting to please Krishna. So sometimes the illusory energy throws some stumbling blocks in your path just to test what you're really made of. I remember Srila Prabhupada saying that the way this world works, he said, is that as soon as you try to do something for the good, there's an impediment. That's the way the world works. That's the way this material world works. As soon as you try to do something for the ultimate good, there's an impediment. And most persons will give up at that point. But if you continue to push ahead to try to do something good, then you can be successful. Success does not always mean as materially measured. Success means to please Krishna. Just like Jatayu in Ram Leela. He was a failure, right? Everyone knows Jatayu. He tried fighting with Ravana to protect Sita. He failed. He was mortally wounded by Ravana. And then in his dying breath, he told Ram, Ravana has taken Sita to Lanka. And then he died. And Ramchandra performed the funeral ceremony for Jatayu. So materially, Jatayu is a failure. But spiritually, he's a complete success. So sometimes material success and spiritual success don't coincide. That's why Krishna tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, victory or defeat is not your concern. Just be an instrument in the fight. Yes. How can we be what?
Progressive.
How can we be progressive in our japa? Again, first have the desire. Then, as I often explain, deal with what is immediately dealable by you. Cope with what you can immediately cope with, which is not so far beyond your grasp, seemingly. Arrange a sacred time for your chanting. At this time, I chant and nothing disturbs me. I won't allow any other pursuits. A sacred time. And then have a sacred place. When I sit here or stand here or even pace here, this is all the spot for my chanting. There are no physical distractions around. Uncluttered atmosphere. Even if it's just a corner of your room, you know, this is my spot for attentive chanting. If you have a room itself that you can dedicate for that purpose, all the better. But at least you have a corner of the room where distractions are pushed away, out of sight. So I always point that out. Deal with what is immediately, what you can immediately cope with. Then you can start thinking of going deeper within. But most devotees I've seen haven't properly established a sacred time or a sacred place for their chanting. Not most, but many. And then they ask, how do you get a bigger taste for chanting? And they haven't sorted out their environment or their schedule. Yes.
We hear and see that there's a high attrition rate amongst the devotees, whether it's the Prabhupada disciples, who are not so many are left, or whether it's nowadays. So I'm wondering, what is the reason for that high attrition rate, or is that just going to be the way it is? There's no solution to it.
In the Wild West, for our devotees growing up in the Wild West, it can be difficult because coming from a background of bad habits, dysfunctional families, so much trauma. But Lord Chaitanya's mercy is for the most fallen. That's what Rupa and Sanatan presented. That's how they presented themselves to Lord Chaitanya. Your Patita Pavana, deliver the most fallen. We can assure you, you won't find anyone worse than us. Therefore, we're the most entitled to your mercy. Those coming from Bharat have more social stability to rest upon because India still has some remnants of real culture. But it's rapidly changing, as so many of you know. Rapidly changing. What the next generation will be like will be quite interesting. So here was, in dealing with the Wild West, here was Prabhupada's rationale. He said, I'm doing this on the authority of Narada Muni, who said, better they come and go than not come at all. Whatever they do while they're fully practicing will be their eternal asset. Their spiritual credits will not be erased. Better they come and fade away than not come at all. Of course, you don't have to fade away, but still, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, swampamasya apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. That little bit of advancement will protect you from losing your human form of life in the next birth. So a little bit of progress in bhakti will protect someone from going into the animal species. So you have to see the big picture and understand how atrocious material society is. And that Kali Yuga darkness it's affecting everywhere in the world to more or less degrees. So therefore, there's weakness, there are attritions. Look at the load Srila Prabhupada took, initiating so many disciples. And obviously not all of them worked out as he would have liked. But he said, on the authority of Narada Muni, you know the verse in Bhagavatam? Chakva sutarmam chadanam bhujam hare. Better you come and go than do your material duties perfectly and never do any bhakti. So you have to see the big picture. And remember, Lord Chaitanya, as Rupa and Sanatana Goswami have said, is the deliverer of the most fallen. It's because we're the most fallen. We have the most right for your mercy. They said to him, if you search the whole universe, you won't find anyone more fallen than us. Therefore, if you want to keep your reputation intact as the deliverer of the most fallen, Patita Pavana, you have to deliver us. Then your reputation will be intact. Yes. The last we hear from Guru Vani.
Hare Krishna Gurudev. On the first night you were talking about loneliness. On the first night you were talking about loneliness.
Yes.
We watched the video about loneliness.
Yeah.
And the focus was on the loneliness outside in material society. And Titaraj Prabhu was talking about how these rocks are on the path of our devotional life.
They're what?
There's challenges along the path.
Yes.
And so people within the Hare Krishna movement can, due to those challenges, can find themselves in a position where they feel quite lonely within their movement.
Yes.
And I was just wondering what we can do to be sensitive and supportive to people that are in those stages of life, because as Westerners we have this tendency to be kind of all or nothing. If we're not, performing, ticking all the boxes, then we feel like we can't.
Well, you can only help those who want to help. I know myself, I reach out to those who have slipped or fallen away, but sometimes they don't want to be reached. So that it's a tough decision, how to know when to say something and when to just back off and wait for time to have its effect. So yes, it requires maturity, because naturally younger devotees are thinking, I don't want to be contaminated myself. And you can't blame them for thinking like that. At the same time, persons going through challenges need support if they want it. So the reality is sometimes they want it, sometimes they don't. So you have to be become expert to know when to say something and when to just not ready to hear right now. I've had the experience for many decades. You can reach out to someone and they don't want to be reached. The example I sometimes tell, story, a classic example. There was one lady in Russia who had been a devotee since she was 15. Now she's in her 40s, married and children, but had slipped with her spiritual practices. They were non-existent. And her husband was still very strict. Very strict means doing the basics. Many would consider that being very strict. So he just kept telling me about his problem. And so I said, well, let me try to talk to her. She's a disciple of someone who's a close associate of mine. Let me try to talk to her. And so I, at a Sunday feast, she showed up and I said, we have a talk. And I thought it went okay. And then the next day, the husband calls me up. What did you say to her? She's just totally enraged. She's cursing. She's yelling. Who does he think he is? Telling me I'd be happier if I chanted Hare Krishna. What does he know? Ooh. I said, oh my goodness. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. But because of her husband and because of her guru, I made an endeavor. I was cautious. I thought this could blow up. And it seemed all right while I was talking to her. But then later I heard about this nuclear explosion. So I said, all right, Swami, you've blown it. It's all your fault. I went away and came back 2 months later. And she's there at the airport with her bead bag in her hand. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I was like, I didn't know what to say. And ever since then, she's been full on. Every time I go in that part of the world, she's right there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Her husband is, I don't know what you did, Maharaj, but you've got a magic wand. I couldn't do it. She's been full on ever since. So sometimes it's like that. So it requires great maturity. It's not something for neophyte devotees. They're not able to pull this off so well. How to judge when to reach out and when to just wait. So it's not like automatically just give your association. Sometimes the association is not wanted. That's the nature of Maya. You know what they're going to tell you. You don't want to associate with them. They're just going to tell you to chant Hare Krishna. So you have to know how to handle that. An experienced devotee like Tirtharaj Prabhu will know how to handle that. As he was telling the story the other day about meeting his old Sankirtan partner in Hong Kong. And he was cordial. They sat down for prasad, and then this person confessed to him. Sometimes I have nightmares, and then I find myself waking up chanting Hare Krishna. I don't know what to do about that. So it requires some maturity. You can't expect young devotees to be able to handle that. Because they're worried about themselves, and you can't blame them for that. What if I start thinking, yeah, I can just stop chanting and everything will be all right? Lightning hasn't struck me. So the older devotees have to deal with the situation. They can judge by experience, by the school of hard knocks, when to reach out and tap someone on the shoulder, hey, and when to back off and just, it's not the time yet. You've got some lessons to learn. So we need more and more mature devotees. That's the answer I want to give you. More and more mature devotees who are not spiritually so insecure that, I don't know, if I start hanging out with you, I could be contaminated. Who know how to deal with the medical situation without getting infected. The more mature devotees that we have, the better. But it's a symptom of neophyte devotees and it's understandable. Just like what's the story in Science of Self-Realization, the letter Prabhupada wrote to Lynn Ludwig? Anyone remember that? Where the lady was complaining, your disciples are so fanatical. They're just always worried about avoiding Maya. That's called being fanatical. And Prabhupada wrote back that, please excuse them. They're neophytes and they're trying to make spiritual advancement. Give them credit for that. As they mature more, they'll be able to handle situations better. But please forgive them. But at least they're on the right track. They're not perfect, but they're trying to be perfect. And they should get all credit for trying to be perfect. So it's a deep question and requires a deep answer. There's no snap solution. We need more mature devotees. Anything else? Yes, Shiji, but you're on.
Sometimes it seems there's devotees who have sacrificed their whole lives for Srila Prabhupada's movement. Spiritual masters, very senior, exalted Vaishnavas, but they develop some kind of illness where their behavioral and intellectual functions are disturbed. So how do we understand this in the grand scheme of Krishna's plan, Krishna's hand? Are these devotees, do they have some kind of other karma they have to go through? Is it due to some kind of offense? Is it Krishna's hand? How do we understand this?
It's showing you the realities of material existence. It's showing you old age is not sweet. These are the realities of material existence. Devotees die in car accidents. Devotees become physically ill. Devotees have brain damage. These things happen. In other words, Krishna is showing you this is not your home. Don't expect a smooth ride in the material world. When the body deteriorates, the brain can also deteriorate. Devotees get Alzheimer's, they get dementia. These things happen. Their service is intact. All the service they've done is intact. So hearing these things, you start thinking, this world is not my home. This body is not mine. It's not me. What does Krishna say in Bhagavad Gita? Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, disease, old age. We always think death is the worst. But I start telling persons old age is worse than death. There's this dream that old age means I just get old gracefully, and then one night in my sleep I just take off. I know the statistics for the USA. 70% of the population does not get the kind of death they dreamed of. They all dream of dying at home at night or surrounded by relatives, just suddenly just float away to who knows where. Or the end, if they're atheists, that's it. 70% end up dying in a hospital. Not what they had in mind. Hospital, or what do you call those places? Terminal, hostel, hospice. It's a tough world. How about devotees in Ukraine? I know one devotee. His name was Krishna Tattva. He was in the eastern part of Ukraine. This happened at the very start of the war. He's doing food for life, distributing food offered to Krishna to the war-torn population because that area was under attack. So he and his friend are doing that. And a missile hit their house and instantly they're gone. You could say, Krishna, why did you let that happen? So you have to think about the example of the cat holding the kitten in its mouth and holding a rat in its mouth. Externally, it looks the same, but internally, the kitten and the rat are feeling totally different experiences. But from the external point of view, it looks like it's all the same. The cat has the rat in its mouth, and then the cat has its own kitten in the mouth. The kitten is feeling love of the mother cat. The rat's feeling terror. So it looks like both the devotee and the non-devotee go through old age and death, but the internal experience is totally different. I know of one devotee in Boston. She was always a wonderful, sincere devotee, and then she was put in a nursing home because she had dementia. All she could remember was Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. How are you today? Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. What will you do today? Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So we need to face up, grow up, and realize this world is not a place of dream fulfillment. Last question, and then, all right, Madhava.
Action, good day. Thank you for your class. I was wondering how, for second generation devotees, it's very different to coming to Krishna consciousness, like other people, just from just growing up a normal life, just and maybe meat eating and other stuff. So, and I know that some second generation devotees they might stray off the path at one point because they haven't experienced what it's like to be in Maya, So I was wondering, what's the best way to avoid that ever happening? Because is it just association, or is there other things that is best to avoid?
The intelligent young person learns by hearing. Experience is the best teacher because a fool will learn no other way. Sometimes, though, someone has to go through it, Sometimes the child of devotee parents hitting teenage years says, well, I know one of them, he told his mother, look, Mom, there's just some things I got to do. I've got to do a few things. What could the mother say? All right, you'll just get fried out like we did. It's like that. Others, not everyone is like that, though. Build your spiritual intelligence so you can analyze what's going on around you and see the result. Not everyone has to learn by experience. It's still the fact that those born in families of devotees, they're the most fortunate, but it's a question of when they may realize their great fortune. Some do it earlier than others. You don't know how it's going to turn out for some of your friends. They may right now be off the path, but by the time old age comes, they could be singing a different tune. So you have to see the big picture, but you have to know what you yourself want. strengthen your spiritual intelligence so that you don't have to learn by experience. Experience is a very damaging teacher. So the attitude that you have now is your great fortune, instilled in you by your parents. Be very grateful. We're grateful that you've attended this festival. Thank you. My advice to you is keep playing mridanga and kirtan and learn how to cook like your mother. You'll conquer the world that way. If you can play mridanga, lead kirtan, and cook like your mother, you'll be able to assist so wonderfully Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan. But you got to get used to the fact that some of your friends are situated differently, Every devotee has to get used to that. You come into this world alone and you leave alone. So you're responsible for your life. Just like as Guru Vani Devi was pointing out, that some persons who they're going through challenges, they feel alone. As Tirtharaj Prabhu was explaining, these challenges can happen. So let's become expert in devotee care, knowing how to reach everyone. And sometimes how to reach everyone means sometimes you just have to shut up and not say anything. So with your friends, it can be like that. You'll see some of your friends doing things that you wonder about, and others are not. Everything is ultimately individual. So seek the best association that you can. You told me you're ready to travel the world. So I said, come on, let's go. We'll take you to Hong Kong and see Tirtharaj. See the sights. All right. At this point, we would like to thank our festival organization team headed by Guru Vani Devi Dasi. What about Radha Priya? Does she help you? Where is Radha Priya? Thank you. Thank you. I noticed a spiritual acceleration in Radha Priya this year. And who else? Radhika Baba for rostering. And where is Radhika Baba? Oh, I see her in the back there. Who else? Arvinda Naba and Tulabati. Newly married and showing the bliss of serving Krishna together. All the head cooks. Can you recite their names? Balaramacharya. Gopal Guru. Krishnagraja. Amani Gaurahari. Oh, we're stage free. Oh. Aravinda Naba and Tulavati, a talented prasad couple. So we thank you all for coming from wherever you came from. And we hope that the prasad was wonderful. Yes? And thank you for your participation in Kirtan and for hearing attentively in class and asking questions. This place is meant for nourishing and rejuvenating devotees' spiritual life. So we thank you all for coming and fulfilling the purpose of this place. And finally, we want to thank Tirtharaj Prabhu, who came all the way from China. He'll be leaving very shortly and flying back to China. So we experienced and relished his presence very much with his very approachable nature and presentation. All right, I thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.